Yes, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs, dear guests, colleagues, esteemed partners at Montreal Institute for Global Security, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us this morning at this press release for our publication, partnered with MIGS, co-authored by Mr. Kyle Matthews and Ms. Marie Lemanche, titled AI Drones and the Future of Defense, a Transnational Security Challenge. I think we stand at a pivotal moment in global security. The challenges we face, from evolving geopolitical landscapes to the complexities of modern defense and security, from the rising of populism, foreign interference, and disinformation to protectionism or threats by the so-called cring states, the axis of autocracies, demand a renewed commitment to common defense, collaboration, and mutual understanding. Artificial intelligence and drone technologies would not only be able to drive growth for an economy like Canada, but will also change the future defense strategy in the North Atlantic Alliance. Our foundation, Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, is a German political foundation active throughout Germany and abroad in 110 offices around the world. Our headquarters are in Berlin, and here in Canada we have a country office opened in 2019. Our foundation takes into account the fact that the importance of the close partnership between Canada and Germany, as well as Canada and the European Union, has been increasing for years now. Germany and Canada share the same values and interests at an international level in the areas of human rights, democracy, the rule of law, conflict resolution, security, the environment, and climate change. Germany and Canada are strongly committed to maintaining and developing a rules-based international system. Our foundation aims to achieve, among other things, addressing German and EU decision makers in the context of KAS measures in selected thematic fields of action to address challenges of global nature, so that they are enabled to understand the analysis and approaches of both sides and to take this into account in their future actions, or building trust and credibility on both sides on the basis of which common values can then be built, and preparing responses to challenges in key policy areas using multilateral instruments. As of 2025, the security and specifically military technologies are more relevant than ever. Within the KAS for Security theme this year that we are exploring with our headquarters, we have decided to launch this publication on recent military technologies' importance, specifically on artificial intelligence, unmanned aerial vehicles, and exploring the future of security challenges together with MIGS. KAS Canada and our partner like MIGS and others wishes to discover the aspect of shifting landscape among a new hybrid warfare among different states involving new military technologies. In times of global crisis, it is more important than ever to secure freedom and security for the democratic countries. AI, big data, biotechnology, space, quantum, and other technologies could help to defend our common shared values. I'm proud to announce that this publication reveals a focus on how AI-driven, unmanned aerial vehicles are transforming military operations and explores what kind of risks and opportunities can affect the future policymakers by showcasing two current conflicts, Gaza and Ukraine. The report outlines the emergence of the autonomous weapon systems, as well as the rapid and complex environment of military and security domain. Recent advancements in military technology had led to the development of increasingly sophisticated systems, including missile defense and sentry systems capable of autonomously detecting and engaging targets while issuing warnings. Hence, the future of defense and security within transatlantic alliance lies in investment of technology. In Germany as well as in Canada, the use of machine learning, vision, robotics, and neural networks in armed forces are on the rise. As the innovation in defense technology is critical for the German army to address today's security challenges and keep strategic edge at the same. I would like to underline the need for a regulated use of fully autonomous defense systems for all governments around the world. We hope that politicians, diplomats, and other policymakers will take into consideration the observations made in this report and consider the ethical and engineering aspects of involving technology in armed forces. Thank you once again listening to our press release. With that, I would like to leave the word to Mr. Kylie Matthews from Montreal International Global Security Institute. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bert. It's an extreme pleasure for my colleagues and I to collaborate with the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, particularly the Canada office. Your office has been fundamental in bridging collaboration between Canada, Germany, and EU member states. This topic is extremely important. Many of you, we didn't plan this, but woke up this morning to find out that there have been massive drone attacks against Ukraine. And there's been massive civilian casualties. So this is not a theoretical exercise or only an academic exercise. It is actually a matter of real security for Europe. It's a security for NATO member states. And our report attempts to kind of give an overview of how AI drone technology is shaping the future of conflict and transatlantic security. And this, of course, takes place, as we allude to in the report, that there's also a fragmentation between NATO allies, particularly among the U.S. So this is a very important topic, and it was a pleasure to work on this, and I hope it'll make a contribution to the issue of human rights, global security, and transatlantic cooperation. We reach you today from Montreal, which is one of the world's main AI hubs. We have a lot of AI experts here, so it's fundamental that Canadians, Quebecers, and Montrealers understand the issue at hand. If I could just maybe, my colleague Marie is going to talk a bit more about the case studies in this report, but I wanted just to give a kind of an overview to everyone. First of all, the methodology. We began this looking at this report by doing an overview of all open source publications, reports, reports done by United Nations and by experts, and as well as media coverage and expert interviews to kind of get an idea about how drone warfare started, how it's evolving, and how AI is being embedded within drone warfare. Now, we open up this report with a quote from the NATO Secretary General, where he alludes to, in a speech about AI and drone technology in warfare, he points to Ukraine, where Ukraine has developed $400 drones to take out $1 million Russian tanks. And he also points to that there are uses of submersible drones, underwater drones, to monitor critical infrastructure, internet cables in the Baltic Sea, and to safeguard critical infrastructure of NATO member states. So this sets the site for how AI and drones are quickly becoming a normal part of conflict, and it situates what can be done and what are some of the problems with using these technologies. Now, I should say, as we start off, we basically noticed that drone warfare, has its origins in the war on terror. The U.S. began to use drones against non-state actors, targeting non-state actors across different countries of the world. And from that, we begin to see proliferation of, while once the world's most powerful military had this technology, we've begun to see it expand. We document an increase of countries, a phenomenal increase of countries that are not only using drones, but producing drones. And we've also indicated quite clearly that with the increase of drone in warfare, we're seeing increased civilian casualties. So while we have our 2 case studies that Marie will go into about Ukraine, also the Israel-Gaza war, we also document that we're seeing drones being used in countries like Somalia, in Ethiopia, in the civil war there in the Tigray and other regions of Ethiopia. We've seen the basically guerrilla warfare in Myanmar extend, where we see non-state actors buying off-the-shelf Chinese commercial drones and using them for military purposes against the Myanmar military. So this is transforming conflict. It's giving power to non-state actors, but also giving more lethal capabilities to governments. So we have to be aware of this. There is an increase of civilian casualties. There's an increase of these drones being used. And it's also taking place, as Bernd mentioned at the start, a rise of authoritarian autocratic countries. We're beginning to see the collaboration of autocratic countries, Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea, collaborate on this and actually collaborate against the security of Europe, particularly in Ukraine. And one of our concerns that we mention here is that in Western countries, we have academic research units, we have journalists, we have civil society, we have political opposition that can ask questions about how AI is increasingly being used in these weapon systems. But in autocratic countries, there is none of that self-protection or control measures put in place. So there are many areas that we can report open source about what is happening, but there's other things we don't know. We don't know what is being developed in what capacity in certain closed autocratic states and what their future impact is on NATO and countries. Now, I would also like to point out is that we've seen the use of drones in these countries I've mentioned, civil conflicts. We're seeing Iran, we mentioned in the report, has built a drone aircraft carrier, which is now being deployed in the Red Sea. We've seen drones being used by Iran to attack Israel, non-state groups like the Houthis to attack Israel, but also to attack transport cargo in the Red Sea. So this is happening at a very high scale, but the advent of AI is really it's really beginning to start, and we have to keep our eyes on this because there are many, many concerns that we are going to take humans out of the loop and that these systems will make increasing errors, which means that in warfare, armies, militaries are supposed to follow the rules of war, the Geneva Conventions, and to respect international humanitarian law. And there's a lot of concern that AI is not being trained to do that and actually can be detrimental to these key findings. So there's a really concern. And we've heard from experts saying, what happens if these AI autonomous weapon systems become independent and there's no human contact, or actually we lose control of them? These are scary futuristic scenarios. But I think it highlights, a report highlights that there needs to be some kind of, we're not going to stop the use of these technologies in warfare and conflict. We're actually seeing the opposite, massive investments in private sector companies. We're seeing them deployed and having phenomenal impact from a military perspective. As I mentioned in our case study on Ukraine, you've seen Ukraine use drone technology to take out many Russian ships in the Black Sea Fleet without having an actual navy. We've seen Ukraine be able to create very quickly from scratch, these weapon systems to actually fight back a much larger, superior country, and also to target, facilities, oil, energy storage in Russia. So I don't think we're going to put this back in the box. It's with us. What can we do to kind of shape this so it's used in a responsible manner. We don't lose control of it, and we also follow international humanitarian law, because that is one of the major concerns of all the people we spoke to. And I should also mention, we've seen, in Syria, we saw ISIS use drones to attack, military, Syrian military commanders at an army college. So it also gives a lot of power to non-state actors to do things before that they never had. Only superpowers had that. So we're in a very interesting, challenging time. I think we need to think particularly how Canada, Germany, EU member states, countries that share the same values, that share the same concerns, can work together on this. We kind of, at the end of our report, and this was finalized a couple of weeks ago, so a lot has changed politically, but we're beginning to see the US pull away from some of its traditional allies and to align with Russia. This is concerning. And we also know that the two large superpowers of AI research, as well as using AI for weapon systems, are particularly in the US and China. So there's a need for Canadian, Germans, and Europeans to work more closely together to build our AI research capacity, to look at, as we're building new companies, and there's a whole lot of new companies arising that are doing work on this. So we need to find the right way that we can work together and guarantee our security, look at what autocratic countries are doing, and they're working very closely together. So this is a real security threat, and actually bolster our abilities. But with that being said, I would now like to turn to my colleague Marie Lamanche to have her comments on writing the report, and I believe she is going to give a lot of commentary on some of the case studies that we examined in the report.
Good morning. Thank you, Cal. So one quick follow-up on international humanitarian law. One of the reasons we're worried about this is that we're seeing an increasing reliance on AI decision support systems and drones, meaning that, so AI decision-making support systems are AI techniques used to analyze data, provide actionable recommendations, and assist decision makers situated at different level in the chain of command. And what we're worried about is that militaries are increasingly relying their decisions on this. It's no longer really a support system. They're increasingly relying on AI to make the decisions, and that is worrying, especially if the data is flawed. And we looked at two case studies, Ukraine and Gaza. We looked at Ukraine because we were looking at images of the war and seeing soldiers, often former civilians, using these small drones that you can basically buy off Amazon for $400. They're usually used for civilian use. And they were arming them or weaponizing them, so innovating them in new ways to attack Russian infrastructure or Russian soldiers. And really, Ukraine is, in a way, a defining moment for the use of drones and the integration of AI into conventional warfare. As we know, be it World War II or World War I, wars really serve as a new testing ground for new technologies, and that's what we're seeing in Ukraine and Gaza. So drones cannot seize territory, but they can provide critical logistical support. And that's what we're seeing in Ukraine. And we're also seeing, because of the urgency of the situation, a rapid innovation cycle on both sides, be it Russia or Ukraine. They're kind of bypassing the kind of bureaucratic, legal obstacles that the US, for example, would follow, because they need to go fast. And the balance of power completely changes. Who would have thought, 3 years ago, that Ukraine would still have enough territory, especially thanks to these small drones? A lot of Ukrainian soldiers and commanders have said that basically the future of Ukraine and its sovereignty really depends on the use of drones against Russians. And they've been able to really target the Russian infrastructure and Russian fleet, but also soldiers. I heard one soldier say not too long ago that in the past year they had killed a lot of Russian soldiers through these drones. So Russia has been using a lot of Iranian drones, while Ukraine has been using smaller drones that have been proven very useful on the ground. But again, it often includes, bypassing the kind of protocols that usually we would see in terms of human rights and international humanitarian law. In Gaza, and that's the case that's particularly worrying because Israel has long been using drones. They have the money to do so, like the US. They can really invest in this. And they've been using different programs that we looked at thanks to different reports by Human Rights Watch. One of them is a program called Lavender, which basically assists in assigned suspicion scores to individual based in Gaza, and it's based on basically their behavior, their social connections, where they live, and multiple data points. In the first week where they used this program, they basically flagged 37,000 Israeli Palestinians in this initial phase, but there was little verification system, and the percentage of error is of 10%. So once you start relying on this, the system is flawed. The other system program they use is the Gospel. It basically categorizes civilian infrastructure, including family homes and public facilities. And again, there's as potential targets during attacks. And again, we have seen flaws in the system. And finally, the last program they rely on is Daddy, which relies on mobile data to pinpoint individual locations. But what we have seen in this in this instance is there have been errors already, including in 2014 and in 2021. Several civilians, including children, were killed because they were mistaken for Hamas soldiers because they relied on data used by from these programs, and especially within the Israeli army, there is basically no zero tolerance policy. Just go for it, because what matters is rapidity and targeting the individuals or infrastructure. So that is why we also looked at the case of Gaza, because it's being used as a testing ground, but with no respect really for protocols and international conventions.
Yes, thank you very much. One question to the two experts from my side. What is about the production of AI drones, unmanned aerial vehicles or others in time? Because looking to the discussions in Europe about the current developments of the Ukraine war, the NATO is wondering what is necessary now to produce tanks on the one hand, to produce aircrafts on the other. But what will be the future of defending strategy of the NATO?
I'm happy to jump in there. I'm not a NATO chief of staff or military official, so I don't know where they're planning, but we do allude to this in the report where the NATO Secretary General points out that drones are the future of warfare. And I think what the realization we're seeing with Germany and other EU member states, who are all members of NATO, increasing their defense budget, is that they have to make some serious decisions. Do you go through building a traditional military that takes a very long time to do? Or do you invest some money in these autonomous systems, be it unmanned vehicles, be it underwater or submersible drones? What do you do? And I think that is going to be a significant point for defense officials to make. what do you put in and how can you scale up quickly in order to guarantee security of Ukraine as well as of European states? And what can you build domestically yourself? And I think that is probably going to be a key strategy. I am for it as long as it's done responsibly. And I think that's really where the AI component comes in. I don't think we're going to put drones back in the box. In fact, it's impossible. But how do we use AI in it in a responsible manner that doesn't backfire or we lose control of, or that we don't are not careful that technology is not used by our adversaries, like we're seeing from the autocratic alliance, who are, I'm sure, engaging in cyber operations to steal trade secrets of AI companies in Canada, Germany, on all over. That's happening. So we have to be careful, but I'm under no illusion, and I've seen this in German media discussions about the need to really forget about building 8,000 tanks. We need to build up the drones first and foremost, and then add to that. So that is going to be a very interesting thing to observe. I think Canada's having the same discussion. I know in Canada we're concerned. We've had it's not mentioned in the report, but we've had a internet cable in the Maritimes between Newfoundland and I believe Nova Scotia cut. We don't know who's behind it. We don't have the capacity to monitor. We don't have enough submarines to monitor the Arctic, but maybe drones, submersible drones, are a key to guarantee part of our security and also deploy that with our European allies. So we're going to watch where that happens, but I think our report indicates that there is some responsibility, and as we gear up for legitimate security concerns of our NATO alliance and members, that we must also make sure that we're not, in order to achieve maximum readiness, that we're not also endangering some of our civilians or others. So it has to be carefully measured, and I hope this report will add to the discussion and be used by people working on the issues of security, human rights, international humanitarian law, and take it into consideration.
Yes, what we have seen the difference that it made in Ukraine, who would have thought 2-3 years ago that Ukraine would still be standing, and a lot of that is thanks to drone. But what we also wanted to show in the report is provide a set of recommendations in terms of how to responsibly use AI in the military domain, especially when it comes to targeting. We should, maintain these systems as decision aids and not decision makers, or redevelop robust training programs for soldiers, including in terms of international humanitarian laws and the laws of war, or prevent an over-reliance on AI, being more transparent about the use of AI, and perhaps also really integrate policy and legal oversight. Of course, many of our autocratic adversaries don't do that, but we still have a responsibility in terms of democratic countries to do that. And there's been already for a long time a lot of tensions between the European Union and the US about this, because the US, especially under the new administration, wants to invest, while Europe is more, really wants to kind of respect the protocols more and perhaps amend international conventions as well to keep respecting international law.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the audience in the internet as far as I see? And there is no question. Are there written questions or commentaries? I'm looking into it. If not, is there anything to add from your side? When will it be published today?
Yes, if I could add to that, Bert. So for those who are following us online, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on social media channels, the report is on our website, MIGSinstitute.org. You can Google the Montreal Institute for Global Security or the title of this report. I believe we also have posted it to social media and to LinkedIn. So it's available. Anybody has any questions, interest, please reach out to us. This is part of we have other publications that we're working with KAS on. So we look forward to making further contributions to policy and deep reflection on emerging technologies and the security of NATO and the transatlantic community. And this is feeding into our annual event, the Montreal International Security Summit, that will take place in Montreal on October 15th and 16th of 2025, that will touch upon many of these issues. So we hope that those following will join us in Canada, will reach out, and we remain deeply committed to working with our German partners, because I think there's a lot of key things that can be done between Canada, Germany, both between governments, but also civil society. So we're very pleased to have partnered with KAS Canada today.
And as you will see in the report, we also spoke to a number of tech experts, diplomats, including from Austria and Germany, and from the UK. We spoke to Human Rights Watch. People have been working on this for years, and I hope you will enjoy the report.
Thank you very much for today. And not to forget to mention it, have a look on the website of Konrad Adenauer Foundation Canada, or follow us on LinkedIn or in other social media channels. We will contribute to this publication what we can, because it's a very important topic from my point of view for our common defense and security in our common future. And Canada and Germany and the European Union should work very close together on this current and challenges of the future. Yes, thank you very much. If there's nothing left, I would say that is our publication today, our press release to a new publication together with MIGS. Thank you very much to Marie Lamanche and Kylie Matthews for working very close together. Take care and have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.